Okay, everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning or good afternoon. It's afternoon officially now on the East Coast. Thank you for coming to our April 2021 Lunch and Learn event where we're talking about positive impact planning and meaningful follow through for cannabis businesses. All right. So these are our speakers today. We're just going to go through a few kind of welcome and introductory comments. You'll hear a little bit from each of our speakers. And then we have a very special guest, Mayor Narkowitz from Northampton, Massachusetts. He's going to give us just a few minutes about his perspective about positive impact, really the impact that cannabis businesses really do have and that they can have. And then we'll get into our panel discussion. And okay, so first of all, I just want to mention with Elevate Northeast, thank you all again for coming here. I'm Beth Waterfall. I'm the executive director and one of the co-founders of Elevate Northeast. We're growing. We're actually in the process of hiring a couple new people to our team, but we're also moving forward with an awesome relationship that we created with Holyoke Community College. We've developed a scholarship fund, and we're raising money this spring and summer to hopefully send a full class to the September Cannabis Core Curriculum Program at Holyoke Community College. So anybody can donate, any little amount matters. So please just go to our website to check that out if you're so inclined. And then our next event, so this will be May 2021 Lunch and Learn event. We're gonna go a little bit off the cannabis track a little bit and talk about a really big topic that we're seeing a lot in our networks and in our industry. You know, the emerging psychedelics and entheogens. How is that working with cannabis? Are there opportunities to collaborate? Is there crossover? What's going on? And of course, it's Mental Health Month, and there's been a lot of advancements that have been celebrated in regards to the treatments with psychedelics. So really excited to dig a little bit deeper into that next month. Thank you, huge thank you. MCR Labs, they're one of our biggest supporters. We're really grateful to have their support today for this event. If you don't know, MCR Labs, they're one of the Massachusetts testing laboratories for cannabis businesses here in Massachusetts. And they're also in some other states as well, but they're right here in Mass and Framingham, and they're really great supporters of community efforts. So thank you to MCR Labs. All right, before we just introduce our speakers, I wanted to kind of get some facts out and get some, set the table here a little bit about, what are we talking about? Positive impact planning and meaningful follow through. And so I just, a little fact, a little did you know, in Massachusetts, anybody that wants to get a license, whether they're looking to operate a retail store, they want to operate a laboratory, cultivation, processing, they have to submit with their application something called a positive impact plan. There's also a separate diversity plan. They're totally separate. But the positive impact plan is supposed to positively impact areas of disproportionate impact as defined by the commission. And as defined by the commission, there are these five communities that positive impact plans are supposed to benefit. So just really quickly, past or present residents in those areas of disproportionate impact from enforcement on the war on drugs, state designated economic empowerment applicants, people that are participating in our social equity program, residents who have Massachusetts residents who have been convicted of a drug offense in the past, and then also their families, because drug convictions and incarceration certainly can have its impacts on generations. So interestingly, the CCC put out a report, and granted, this is well over a year old now, but some of the findings were really interesting. Only 1% of the positive impact plans that have been submitted addressed all 5 of those areas that we just saw on the previous slide. 1%. 51% included language that demonstrate their understanding of the historical narrative of marijuana prohibition and enforcement. That's half. The commission clearly defines a difference between positive impact plans and diversity plans, but only 63% in the narrative in their plan clearly, stated that they understood that a diversity plan is separate from a positive impact plan. And then the CCC also suggests or wants there to be goals and metrics involved, but only 3 included metrics. And then you can see at the bottom about who actually had goals. And I just found that staggering that these plans had been forth, and that, in fact, that they had been approved without really fully doing maybe what they're supposed to do. So really wanted to have this conversation. And then full disclosure, as the executive director here of Elevate, I'm also a consultant to businesses that are in the cannabis industry. And I had an experience working with a client, an established business that had a diversity plan and their positive impact plan. But unfortunately, they weren't doing anything. And the plan, they hadn't reached out to the people that were supposed to be benefiting from their plan. and it was a big mess. And there were all these kinds of excuses about, we're going to wait until COVID's over. So I was like, wait, that's not what this is all about. So I was really happy to be able to have this platform, Elevate, to really talk about this, because once we started looking, as you can see, it can be kind of an issue. So we brought together this panel of people that, from our perspective here at Elevate, are doing something very right in this regard. So I wanted to get their perspective, their experiences, and just talk about it and take some questions too. And then, of course, we have David Narkowitz, the mayor from Northampton. And we invited Mayor Narkowitz to join us because he recently made some news for announcing that his city of Northampton, which has a bunch of marijuana dispensaries and businesses, they're no longer going to accept or collect a 3% community impact fee, which is something that's regulated in the Massachusetts cannabis regulations. So with that, I'd like to just introduce quickly Mayor David Narkowitz from Northampton, Massachusetts. Mayor, can you just tell us a little bit about, your perspective on all of this, and what do you think? Why did you make this decision about not collecting the impact? Like, what is the impact that cannabis businesses are truly having?
Well, thanks so much for having me today. And for those who don't know where Northampton's located, we're about 100 miles west of Boston. We're a small college city, just under 30,000, very progressive part of Massachusetts. And we've been, I think, a leader Northampton has in this new emerging industry. Our the voters of Massachusetts voted in 2012 and then 2016 on first medical and then on adult use. Northampton voters voted overwhelmingly, over 70%, 75% on medical to legalize. So we've tried to be out front. We've put in place, I think, a very straightforward application process. We don't require, for example, special permits, just unless you have, you're building a huge facility that would require something like that. But generally speaking, we have a very straightforward process. We've had a great reception in terms of people wanting to locate here. And we had the second medical dispensary in the state to open, and we had the first adult use retail dispensary to open here in Northampton. So so far, I mean, we've had a really positive experience, and I've been happy to tell as many people who will listen to me that this has been a very positive industry in terms of job creation, in terms of bringing people to our community. And so, this at the end of last year, we made the decision that we would no longer require folks to pay this 3% mitigation fee, which many of us, in the early goings of the industry, were sort of just including in our HCAs and just sort of collecting on sort of an ongoing basis. For our city, that's mostly meant one large applicant or one large licensee. And so we made that decision because, frankly, we see it as one more hurdle to trying to get smaller players, trying to get equity applicants, trying to get particularly folks from disproportionately impacted communities involved in the industry in Northampton. It's an additional cost, and those additional upfront costs. It's already an expensive industry, so we felt that we would lower this additional barrier and continue to be a leader in Massachusetts. And we've gotten a positive response, and I think we'll start to see other communities follow suit. We've not seen crime increases. We haven't seen any of the other concerns about increases in youth use. And mostly what we've seen are people running really well-run businesses, contributing to the community in positive ways, getting involved in local organizations. Most of our retailers have joined the Chamber of Commerce and participate in Chamber of Commerce meetings. So I think to the extent that I've tried to normalize this industry and try to treat it like every other business, including being the first customer and the first purchaser back in 2016, I think we've done a successful job, and I hope that other communities will follow suit. But if not, I hope people interested in getting into the industry will check out Northampton in the 413 and come talk to us. We'd love to have you here.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And just what you're doing is an incredible example, I think, of meaningful follow through on understanding the history of the war on drugs and the impact that it's had on certain communities, and not even being a licensee, but really being a steward of that goodwill of our regulation. So I applaud you for that. And I'm really excited to see, who's going to follow in those footsteps down the line. So thank you for that. Is there anything you want to leave us with as far as any sort of suggestion on positive impact planning? What really does matter to a community, to a host community?
I think, it's obviously disheartening to look at those statistics you showed. I can say what some of our folks are doing here that I think are truly, making some positive impacts. Everything from, one of our licensees has, set up a foundation and is making grants to support startups and to support, seed capital for folks who are trying to get into the industry. We just had another cultivator that we did a groundbreaking on a factory that they're going to take over. They've partnered with a local nonprofit that basically works with youth disproportionately impacted communities, and are committing to creating jobs at their facility for those youth that are involved in that nonprofit program. So I think the key for me is, for folks to really, put their money where their mouth is, and to really show real investments in trying to advance equity and trying to advance the overall goals of the industry. And so I think those would be the things that I would say to somebody sitting down to create one of these plans. I liked what you said about measurable goals. I think, setting goals in terms of, I mentioned this cultivator, they've set a job goal of how many folks they want to get employed and get trained and get working in this facility that they're in the building stages of, but they hope to get operational soon. So those are, I think, important things for people to think about, and also look at each individual community, because obviously it's not a cookie cutter thing. What might work in Boston may not be what would work in a city like Northampton. So, but obviously, wish everyone well, and I hope you'll check out Northampton if you're thinking about starting a business in this industry.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You're welcome again to stay or leave. Take care. Yes, Lori, what you got?
So my question is about, so the impact fee comes in after you've obtained your license. But as you know, a lot of economic empowerment, social equity, those who've been actually marginalized by the war on drugs can't even get through licensing in order to get to impact. So is there any equity program that Northampton has or is considering to make, certain licenses available to these marginalized groups?
Yeah, so we actually weren't, prior to my decision about impact fees, we weren't actually charging any fees to those categories of applicants to begin with. So we don't have any local fees. We don't have a local process. We don't have administrative fees. Literally, you do a community outreach meeting, you meet with me, and we sign an HCA and you're on your way. So I have not denied anyone an HCA in Northampton. Anyone who's wanted an HCA, I've signed it. And we don't charge anybody separate application fee. We've really, tried to support folks and just get them to the CCC. I know that process has been frustrating and long and hard to figure out. And we've had many people, obviously, who can't afford to lease a space for 2 years. So that's a barrier. So that's what we've tried to do. And we've encouraged, we've obviously encouraged some of the applicants that we do have, or the license holders that we do have, to try to support those types of applicants, to give them the capital they need, because I don't have to tell you what an expensive industry this is to get into, even without the impact fees.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate you. And definitely, I'm gonna let you know when I'm out in in Northampton this summer.
Thanks for having me, and have a great rest of your event. I have to leave to go to something else. So thank you
No
so much
worries.
for having me.
No worries. Thank you so much.
All
Appreciate
right.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
All right, so let's get into the rest of this conversation here. Just very quickly, I'm going to ask each of our additional speakers to just give a couple minutes introduction about who they are, what they're doing with their business, and where they're located. So why don't we start? I love going alphabetical order. April, welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is April Arasati. I am a founder and CEO of Seed, which is a cannabis dispensary in Boston. We are in the Jamaica Plain neighborhood of Boston, in Hyde Square, just adjacent to Whole Foods. And, we're a retail only establishment. We, are hoping to work with just every vendor in the state. We want to carry everything, and have really tried to focus a lot on retail experience. We're a recreational store, so we really wanted to come out strong and create a retail experience for people that not only is a comfortable space and an exciting space, but also has a staff of trained purveyors that can assist people who are just starting out in cannabis, who used to use cannabis and want to get back into it, or who have been using cannabis, their whole lives. So that's sort of the goal on the dispensary side. Core is co-located with Seed, and Core is its own entity and is unique and really provides a lot of uniqueness to the space. Core is a social justice cannabis museum. It is the first of its kind in the world that I know of. And it was really important for us to include this as part of the Seed plus Core business model. I came from the medical side of cannabis. I had a very strong personal mission in getting involved to the medical side of cannabis. And I feel like all of the success of that was based on having a strong mission. So seeing all of the injustices and the hypocrisy surrounding cannabis, and being an attorney by profession, I really wanted to highlight a lot of this tortured drug policy in America. So CORE is essentially a museum. And we have an exhibition right now going on called American Warden, which really invites guests to experience incarceration in America against a backdrop of cannabis prohibition. So I know it's a lot, but it really is what we use to make the space unique. And we hope that a lot of people will enjoy it. And that mission really goes deep into our DNA, which I know we're going to get into talking about later. But as far as how we structured our organization to not just have a PIP, but also sort of have all of those goals of a PIP that sort of go all the way through to the DNA of our organization.
Right to the core.
To the core. Nice.
Thanks, April.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Ross. Ross Bradshaw is the CEO and founder of Nudia in Worcester. Ross,
Hello.
what's up?
What's up?
How long have you been open now? You too, April. You guys just a few weeks. Right?
Somewhat of a blur.
Yeah.
About 2 months now, though.
Congrats. So tell us a little bit about Nudia and you, and what you're doing here today.
Definitely, of course. So a little bit about me. I've been around for a while. So I actually started out in the space. Wanted to get involved in the medical marijuana industry back in 2013 or 14. Here in Massachusetts, and it was at that point in time when I was trying to get involved in the industry, I started to see a lot of the hurdles and barriers for, small independent minority-owned companies that wanted to get a foothold in this industry. At that point in time, there was no discussion of diversity plans. There was no discussion of positive impact plans. And it really was just an industry that excluded a certain segment of folks and kind of neglected a population of people that really I thought should be the benefactors of this industry. It was a blessing in disguise for me, because it allowed me to go down this path of being an advocate in the space and really fighting for equity and fighting for diversity and a different industry that we're trying to actually bring about here today with the recreational industry. And so I became a volunteer for the SL4 campaign. I was the co-founder of a not-for-profit called EON, Equitable Opportunities Now. And we really tried to instill diversity in this industry and have a lot of impact in pushing this narrative forward with putting diversity first, putting meaningful impact in our communities, and ensuring that folks that have been left behind are not locked out of this industry. And in that process, that's when I kind of became, it kind of just came as an accident in terms of wanting to create my own company. And that's what formed UDIA, which stands for Diversity in Action, but it also is an acronym, or it also means a new day. And we became Central Massachusetts' first economic empowerment applicant to open its doors, which we're super excited about. We've been open for about 2 months now. And what's so special about this company, about us, is that we're actually located in the disproportionately impacted area and community. It's ingrained in who we are and our employees. Most of our employees walk here to work. You know, we are embedded in the fabric of our community, and we're going to be doing the same thing actually in Boston for our second location. And you know, diversity it's embedded. It's in the foundation of everything that we do. And we're super excited to be here today to tell you a little bit more about you know, our experience, our process, and what we're looking to do when it comes to positive impact plans, and when it comes to kind of setting the stage and a role model for other folks.
Thank you so much for that, Ross. And then finally, Ms. Laurie, Big Mama Lucian, welcome.
Hola, hola, hola. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I'm always looking for spaces where we can share our experience and hopefully it could help inspire or enlighten someone else. So who is Big Mama, AKA Great Mama, but my mama named me Laurie. So I grew up in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. When I was 15 years old, it was my senior year of high school, and I wanted to get a scholarship to go to college in America. I asked my principal, can I get a scholarship? She said no. 2 weeks later, I was in America pursuing the scholarship, because this is what the industry is about. It's pursuing this dream, in my opinion, that may not be stable, but you know it's going to come true. So I come to America, but at this time I'm like, I'm going to be a medical doctor, because by nature I'm a healer, and I'm going to leave it at that. So I decided to pursue that in the sciences. So I became I had a bio degree, exercise science double major. So I was all up in the sciences. Then I went and conducted cancer research. And then I realized that, you know, my outfits kept getting stained by the bleach. So somebody else had to go cure cancer, you know. So I ended up leaving that and then going into law school and practicing corporate healthcare, because again, healing. And then I discovered corporate healthcare is not healing. So I left and then went into cannabis. I founded a company in California called Albert Einstein's. And from that, I came to Massachusetts. I was one of the first vendors for the social equity program. So shout out to all my students who are opening stores. Devin I'm so proud of him. Amazing. So I was part of that. Then obviously I'm now the CEO and founder of Major Bloom with my partner Ulysses Youngblood. We will be opening hopefully end of May, early June for vertically integrated facility. So we're infusing, retailing, and delivering out of that location. We're super excited. For us with Major Bloom, we wanted it to be an experiment, a thought experiment on changing capitalism and making capitalism be human resources, be the primary source of our strength and not actual money. So our business is predicated on the term Sibat, which is an old Egyptian word that means master student. That means every single person in that place is my teacher, and I'm also their student, and I'm also their teacher. So with that, it's an incubator. Every single person who works for us is working towards getting their own line in our store, our product manufacturing line, and also eventually their own business. The only promise that they have to make is to pay it forward, because we do not help anybody who's there to breathe in for themselves and not breathe out for others. And so the concept is, if we can create a business where at the core of the business is the concept that you need to help other people, and it takes fire, think about the world we'll live in. And no one will ever be able to say, I can't do it because it hasn't been done. Nah, Big Mama did it, and she did it well, and so can you. So I am very grateful for the opportunity to be here and to share my experiences. And thank you so much. I got to meet April today. I haven't been to the store yet, but I've heard really tremendous, great things. And Ross and I are Mass Eon, and we've been together for a Grizzip, maybe two. Maybe he's like, I'm done with Big Mama, but
never. Thank you guys. And then, like I said, I'm Beth Waterfall. I'm the executive director of Elevate. I'm going to moderate this conversation today. And I also run a business development consulting agency and really have been focusing on, I think, naturally that marketing and community outreach really do go hand in hand for a brand in cannabis. So let's get to it. So the first question that I had for the group, So we understand the economic empowerment applicants and the social equity program participants. They were on that list of those five communities that the positive impact plans are supposed to help. There's also competition there too, right? But what can non-priority applicants do to effectively include or engage these two communities in their positive impact plan, considering how only 1% when we looked at that report actually did address all five of those communities? Do you guys have any sort of insight on that, whether it's, using their brands or partnerships? What do you think?
I mean, I can tell you that we, as far as empowerment applicants and social equity applicants and promoting their brands as wholesalers, we definitely prioritize that. But that's like low hanging fruit. I think for us, partnership has been, an ongoing effort. Also, not necessarily these designated social equity participants and economic empowerment applicants, but the areas for sure is just about hiring. And for us, we sought those areas out for our investors. So 81% of our investors are of Black and Latino descent, many of them from the areas of disproportionate impact. 82% are local. We've spent over 10 years incarcerated by the war on drugs as an entity. And so that's like the ownership front. And then on the other side, just, job fairs. We held a lot of job fairs and tried to get we didn't even have to really try just because of the neighborhood we are in, but we sort of satisfied it organically.
So I'll jump in too. So with Major Bloom, I told you, CBOT, we're all masters and students. So one of the first things we do is there was a diversity issue. So my sisters are tremendous recruiters. So I helped them create a company called Kazoo Consulting. If you guys need help with recruiting diverse candidates. So what they do is they recruit folks who are eligible for the social equity program, and we hire them and prepare them to participate in the program with the hopes that they're going to go through our incubator program and then get their own business. We also are applying for the social equity program so we could be vendors, because who better to teach the cohort than us? And I've done it before. And we want to take the money that we get paid from the program and reinvest it in our students. So to me, it's kind of like I take government money and I actually do what I want to do with it, because there's no social equity fund being really managed. And so those are the main parts. So it's our incubator program, making sure that folks are knowing about the social equity program, and hiring my sister's company to ensure that we have candidates who are excellent.
Very good. We say sometimes in Elevate that it's kind of like we're Robin Hood in a sense. What can we do to do good, to benefit the folks who really, really need it? Ross. Oh yeah, go ahead.
That's that too. Transfer of knowledge. Even being open just a couple of months, there's so much information that I've gained just from being an operator that I realized that I can easily transfer to another operator to help them reduce or not make certain mistakes, or to move in a different direction. And I think anyone who's operating or anyone who's soon to be operating, being able to share that knowledge, it's hard to put a value on that.
Thanks, Ross. I'm going to go right back to you because, the cannabis industry isn't just the licensees. And so we have, business like mine, marketing, or people that are doing construction, accounting services, packaging, all that type of stuff. They're not required to submit any sort of positive impact plan, diversity plan, anything like that. But just being in the spirit of being a good steward of the spirit of our regulations here in Massachusetts, and also, showing that they understand what I think is a responsibility to do some good while doing well. How can ancillary businesses that aren't required to have these plans, what can they do to have a positive impact in their communities?
Yeah, so I think, sorry about the background noise of doing construction.
Oh, I don't even hear it. You're good.
I think the first piece is being engaged in your community. I think that's my biggest pet peeve, is when people or organizations try to create a positive impact plan or diversity plan without actually being engaged in their community. So what that entails is listening and understanding where you can make an impact. So in our community, for us, it's easy because we are ingrained in the community. It's where we live. It's where we raise our families. So we know from communications with community members, what are the biggest hurdles, what are the biggest issues that we're all facing. Prime example is in our community, it's a low income community and food insecurity is a huge issue. So that's what we're primarily focused on for the time being. But I think for anyone who's in any type of business, focusing on what you hear is the main issue, the pain point, that's where you begin to make the biggest impact. And it's different based on the communities that you operate in.
Totally.
Absolutely. And I also think in addition to identifying what their key issues are, we have to work to break what Anslinger and William Hearst did with creating a stigma around marijuana. Even though it's pretty liberal here, folks still think of it as heroin. Like, no offense to heroin, but folks are still, and so it's our job within the community, no matter what aspect you serve, to make sure that you're out there in the communities, educating them about the endocannabinoid system, letting them know about William Hearst and how racist, like if you hate marijuana, you hate Mexicans. If you say it like that, based on the history, you can get folks riled up and teach and really, and once you empower them with the knowledge of what was done to stigmatize them, they get mad. No one likes to be gaslit, especially not by your own government.
So true. I miss doing the presentations, playing, recordings or quotes from White House when they're talking about, what the Christ is wrong with all these Jews, like, because they're psychiatrists, because they love marijuana. It's just so bizarre and crazy in the context of today that to think that the president who had, the ear and the eye of every single person, and there weren't 10,000 different TV channels that they could get their news. Like, he had everybody's ear and eye, and it's just so incredible how you can't really get away with that anymore. In today, we have Google, there's all sorts of different news and resources. But when people really hear it, sometimes they think, oh my gosh, what? That's real? Yes, it is.
Right.
I know you've been in there, but all of that information and those really astonishing quotes are plastered all over the museum exhibits. And that's really what we were, hoping to just lift the veil on and get people to understand.
Yeah, it's shocking. Sometimes you need that jolt.
You get angry and then you have the weed to cool you down. Like, it's just amazing.
Go to the museum, then go in, get a little something.
Go in and just process the information.
Oh man. So, I mentioned earlier COVID, and for me, that was an excuse that a client had used as to why they weren't doing anything related to their positive impact plan. It's like, we can't, locations are closed. We can't get people together. We're just going to wait. I see you shaking your head, Laurie. But, there's also been this announcement that there's more investigators and the CCC is getting back to business and all that. So do you guys have any sort of perspective, thinking about how these new investigators and agents are going to be going out and probably looking at things like this? Are you following through on your impact plan? All these things that you put forward. Is there anything you'd like to see either done? How should the CCC address that people that aren't, or companies that aren't following through on this important component of their license?
I will tell you right now, I got hit with the CCC RFI for one of my plans. And I'll be transparent. I said I would provide training to the diverse candidates. And the response was, how is this going to benefit the diverse candidates? This had passed for all my other licenses. And so to me, that was like, wow, they're really investigating and trying to get to the bottom of what people are doing and why. So I think moving forward, if they're bringing this energy now to us, I can presume that we're not going to see plans get through like you described before, where there are no goals and metrics assigned. The only thing they can't judge really is the quality of the program. Okay, so as long as you get it done, it's done. So I would love to see the quality of the programs examined. And for me, I think people need to stop thinking within the confines of the law. Be a human. Understand, understand the issue that we're really trying to fight. Yeah. We're really trying to heal, bring healing to communities that have been harmed. We're not trying to meet quotas. And when you approach it with that consciousness, your plan just comes out and it's organic and it's beautiful. It's not like, okay, one meeting every Thursday to these, it just, if you're a human being, the plan should be simple.
Yeah. If you really understand that. Yeah, I feel you. Anybody else want to comment on that about, what should the CCC do about non-compliance with the, follow through here?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to have metrics and accountability, but at the same time, I feel as though if you have a true positive impact plan, diversity plan, it's going to evolve. It's going to be, as Laura mentioned, it's going to be a human being. It's going to have different aspects that if you're truly engaged in your community, you're going to be realizing that there's different evolving things that are happening in the community that you should incorporate into your business. And we see that every day in our company. You know, right now it's food insecurity, but one of the things that we're seeing now is, even with some of the programs that we have in our community, a lot of the folks in our community are undocumented immigrants, and they don't feel comfortable putting their names and putting their address for a lot of those benefits. So we're looking at our positive impact plan now and saying, how can we change this, but yet still be held accountable to the CCC for our positive impact plan? So I think there is that delicate balance, but it has to be open communication, and it has to have a meaningful impact. It's not simply just checking a box, but it's really making a difference, and it has to have, at the end of the day, it has to have meat, right? It has to have a true benefit versus just checking a box.
100%, 100%. Anything you want to add on that, April?
Yeah, I just, I think there's sort of two parts to it, right? The question you're asking is, how do we address groups that aren't following through with their positive impact plan? And that's tough, right? I think having regulators, I mean, maybe this is self-serving, but the business itself is very heavily regulated, like more than any other. You know, we might as well have hazardous waste and nuclear arms. You know, it's like very difficult to maintain all the different aspects of compliance. And I think that is underestimated by a lot of people, particularly outside the industry. And to the extent that we could be treated more like alcohol in a lot of respects, that would alleviate some of that burden. And then also not only on us, but also on regulators. And then they could have the more human interaction that Lowry and Ross are discussing, where we are, you know, if an organization is trying, if you go there and you engage and you know the humans behind it. If you are getting a form with boxes checked off or words or an adjustment to a plan, you don't necessarily know what is happening. So that's like the current, like, how do we address that part of it? But then also, I just think more work needs to be done on the front end, where there's a little more discretion and deliberate, decision about who actually gets the licenses, rather than just a sort of, it's more administrative at the state level here in Mass. And I think that that's hard, because if they had more discretion at the front end and were able to see, like, okay, where's the money coming from? Are these members active members of the community? That would be a sort of, it would assist on the latter end.
Can I have one more point? That was great, because you made me realize, let the record show that none of us went and arrested people and broke their families up. The government did that. It's the government's job to have an impact program. But like the government, they want to take their responsibility and put it on us as business owners. And that shit pisses me off. I have never, ever, I mean, I love weed. Why would I do that to others? So we need to be aware. And like, I think as owners and operators, we need to push back on the government and ask them, what are you doing? People are still in jail. The Black men are the leading rate, the leading group committing suicide, Black men leaving prison. And the marijuana laws are directly linked to those rates. So government, it's like, I hear you, April. Like it's on. They're putting all the blame on us when in fact they did it. So I think we need to just highlight that.
I mean, that's exactly the frustration and the point I'm always trying to make when I give these museum tours. Like, we are applauding all of this, like, positive impact and all that, which we need, but it's almost just one more burden that the plant has to bear. And ultimately, like, it's the taxes, it's the licensing, it's holding the real estate, it's all those things. And ultimately what happens is the plant has a harder time getting to the people for cost, for all those things. And so we're empowering these economic empowerment applicants who were burdened by the war on drugs, and now we're burdening the industry that we're getting them into with all of this that was never their issue. So it's almost like this, it's deeper.
Right. I think about my business partner, Ulysses, got beat up by the police. He got kicked out of school for marijuana. And now and I always think about it. And Ulysses is Christ. Like, he's like Jesus. You guys need to meet him. Like, he's such a great human. He forgave the cop, has no animosity. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, wow, bro, like, you're responsible for cleaning up the government's mess when you literally were directly impacted by these laws. How does that make you feel? His Christ ass was like, it's great that I get to give back. Like,
Oh.
but but it's true.
Yeah, well, definitely speaks to the fact, I always use the analogy that, with cannabis legalization, we're kind of building the rocket ship while it's zooming out into like a galaxy 20 galaxies away. It's moving fast. Shops are opening, people are buying, people are getting hired, fired, all this stuff. So it's up to all of us as participants in the industry to be vocal with our regulators and be vocal with our elected officials. When we want to see change, ask for it and advocate for it, which isn't always the easiest thing. But we see, particularly here in Massachusetts, some of the regulations, they release clarification or things change over time, and that's because people are getting in their ear. So I think a great little segue is, where there's still a lot of stigma. People don't understand not just, the war on drugs or the impact that positive impact plans have on businesses, but stigma is really strong, particularly in some of these disproportionately harmed communities. The people that could really benefit from cannabis, whether they're integrating it into their healthier lifestyle or getting a job or pursuing some sort of business venture related to cannabis. So what can cannabis businesses do to engage these people, educate them, make it less scary?
My response is going to be very scary. It's going to be used the same tactics that Anslinger and Hearst use. We have to infiltrate media. We need to stop allowing Hollywood to portray the plant the way that it is. That is a problem, because when I'm in Haiti, I'm seeing people consuming cannabis on the movies. I'm like, well, this is how it impacts you. So that's problematic. We need to take control over how it's portrayed, even in the newspapers, because they're still issuing propaganda. So we need to, like, this is why publications like New Leaf is so important. So we need to combat with more content. The war is a war in consciousness and knowledge, a war against ignorance. So we need to be in our communities, having programs, just bombarding them. They get bombarded perpetually by marijuana being illegal. Why can't we do the same? Except ours will be with truth instead of lies to control them.
I feel that, Laurie. Anybody else want to comment on that? About help, using your position as a cannabis operator to help break stigma?
Yeah, for us, we're constantly looking to do good. We're trying to step away from that stoner stereotype and really be an example. And I think when people see us engaged in the community, see us at the neighborhood food pantry, see us, having career fairs, that itself sets the tone that, we're different. We're moving in a different direction than most people would expect.
Yeah, and I think also it's just, it harkens to what Laura was saying, but to the extent that we can arm people with, the science behind the plant, the aspects of the plant science that are irrefutable and peer reviewed, and, coming from a background in biochemistry myself, I love explaining the endocannabinoid system to people. I love talking about terpenes and analogously relating them to aromatherapy. I think people just simply don't know. And you can't argue with people on their beliefs. Like, if someone believes cannabis is bad, to get in that sort of conversation is just sort of, we don't have a long enough life for that, right? But to be able to say, oh, here's some science I bet you didn't know. Here's some peer-reviewed research. Here's some data. I mean, there's enough information now out there where we don't have to argue about it. We can just present facts. And that is the best way that I've found to win people over.
Blinding them with science. Can we talk, anybody want to share any examples of businesses that you've seen in Massachusetts or even outside of Massachusetts? Because not all states are required to do this stuff, but we hear of different examples across the country of businesses, forging some sort of interesting partnership, starting some sort of incubator, things like that. But does anybody have an example of something really great that they want to shine a light on other than your own?
I mean, I've seen a lot of everyone. I feel maybe I'm just an optimist, but I feel like everyone is trying, right? People want to do good in their community. People want to equalize and give opportunity. As a recovering attorney, I have seen the legal community that is always giving of themselves, their time and their services, even though they get a bad rap. I've seen people just really work hard to elevate their communities. I would say, like, I see a ton of work like that around JP, but I will shout out to a group that I have been lucky enough to work with called the Owners of Black Market, which is a space in Nubian Square in Roxbury that has been working hard they basically created like this artisan co-op space and invited entrepreneurs from their community to come in and, vend their wares and share goods and share ideas. And I think it works because, the majority of them are women. Obviously, the majority of them are local, but it works because they are local. And unfortunately, in this society, success is based on how big you get. And the bigger you get, the less able you are to make impact in that community because you're not in it. You don't know it, So that is one company that I remember when I moved to Boston, I was like, wow, or moved back to Boston. I was like, they're doing it. They're living it.
Cool. Laurie or Ross?
So I
Nothing?
would go, one company I recently saw, and I actually would want to see more of this, is here in Worcester, shout out because we're here, is Redemption Rock Brewing. They took a local artist that was struggling and they put them on one of their craft brews. And that I saw that artist, I knew her, I saw her really kind of take off from there because she got the exposure, she really got the confidence that she needed as an artist and got the connections that, I really got to see her flower and to explore, a different path and just open up a whole different avenue for her. So I'd like to see more of that in the cannabis space. And I haven't seen anyone do it yet, but I think that that's something really cool that we should really be exploring as companies is how do we elevate and highlight, the entrepreneurs, those creative spirits, and really give them a platform to shine.
I like that.
No, this is great. Now you're inspiring Crown and Hops. They're a Black-owned brewery, and they're very politically active and also educationally active. And they have really great art. So I like what they're doing. And one thing I wanted to point out, a lot of major companies want to help economic empowerment and social equity applicants. However, they've been scared because of the onerous ownership and control restrictions. I don't know if you know what the definition of having ownership and control through indirect control, but basically if you have indirect control of a business, you're an owner and you're capping. So those ownership and control provisions, they're great because they've helped me negotiate really great rates. But on another extent, they kind of harm the industry because these businesses are reluctant to give loans or even help with somebody's marketing and SOPs at the fear that they might be labeled as being, being an owner. I mean, with reason, right? We did see the not so great guys try to skirt the law. But now, because of some few bad apples, it is definitely posing an issue with the way that these companies can help. And if they were able to give folks SOPs and money and teach them how to market, that would be a game changer. But they're reluctant to even do that because of these ownership and control restrictions.
I think about this all the time because you have regulators who have good intent and they're trying to make a system work, but they're not necessarily on the business side of things. So understanding that aspect. And so there's this gap, right? You want to do good things, but execution becomes impossible because of the things that you just laid out. And again, it seems to me, and maybe this wouldn't work either, but if there was a way to leave it to the organizations, the empowerment applications and the other groups to be creative about how they addressed everyone's needs and then come to the commission with that setup and say, what do you think of this? And then they could decide yes or no. So if it looks usurious and it looks like it's offensive toward the empowerment applicant, no, you didn't make the grade. But we wouldn't have thought of that because we are not business persons. But you did, and that's good. And it seems like it's going to work for you guys. You get the green light rather than it coming from the other direction, which I think they're not seeing all of the potential pitfalls like that you just explained.
Absolutely. I mean, they thought the economic empowerment program was going to get a bunch of licenses open, not knowing they had put the burden of real estate, the burden of host community agreements, the burden of community outreach meetings on these applicants.
Yeah.
So no money, no teeth, no program that actually works. But shout out to Ross for being able to do it. That just shows you how ingenuous, how creative, and how he had how much work he had to put in. Because the EE status does not give you it's not smooth sailing. And when it comes to raising funds, it can actually be an impediment because it restricts the types of deals that you can take.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff here. So before we definitely have some questions coming in from the audience here, but before we go to them, I just wanted to talk about employees. Certainly we're talking about the positive impact plan for business operators, but I was reminded recently, Elevate has been working with Boston University, doing a couple things with some of their classes. And I had this moment with one of the students where she was talking about, how do I get a job in cannabis? And she's 21 years old, and so she's not going to fill out an application to own a business right now. She wants to get her feet wet, enter the industry in some certain way. So considering that not everybody wants to own a business, wants to own a licensed business, how can these businesses engage employees that can be good stewards of positive impact? And what can we do to kind of leverage our employees to be good representatives of the positive impact that the industry is supposed to be making? Anybody want to talk about employees?
Yeah, I will. Go ahead, Ross.
No, I might sound like a broken record, but like engagement is key. You know, we have some employees that come from other dispensaries, and the number one thing they're surprised by is the fact that I'm here every single day working with them, answering questions, giving them insight into the business. And it's not just some corporate entity and some, man behind a curtain. It's actually me. So I think engaging with your employees in every aspect of your business is huge. And it's something we're starting to see more and more, I think, with small businesses that are starting to develop. But I think that's the number one thing to do, is to make yourself present and engage. Whereas even in my personal professional experience, I didn't have that interaction a lot with the owner or CEO. It was kind of so far removed that you really didn't have that exposure. And I think it goes a long way when you can actually engage with your employees and soon to be employees in that way.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I used to work for big corporate law firms, and we would do like a cleanup day on the Charles River or something. And at first we'd be like, oh, we're just doing this to make the company look good. But then when we were actually out there and creating a positive impact, cleaning things up, and it makes you feel really good about it. So I can see lots of opportunity for that here in cannabis. Anybody else want to talk anything about employees? And then we'll take some questions from the audience.
So part of our recruiting required us to ask some very pertinent questions about our employees, like how do they balance their energy? Do you know about the war on drugs? What do you do for your community? What fulfills you? So by asking these key questions, we're already filtering for the character of the individual that we want. Yeah. And in the interview, we explained to them the importance of understanding the war on drugs and understanding the science behind the plant. And so they're already fired and juiced up for that. And then we talk to them about our ethos. It's people first. So if you're working for us, it can't be about you. And so it's about creating the culture and implementing it that way. And I also consider it like I'm a martial artist. So, they're all white belts. And so I am their instructor. And as my white belts, I'm responsible for their development. And I pray for these people. I pray for all for my employees that they can come to me. And that spirit will allow me to develop them the way they need to. So I think that's the this is what I'm saying. If you think about people first, it comes naturally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say that if in everything we do, I mean, for us, it's easy. I have a jail cell in the middle of the dispensary, we have it. So you're not forgetting in our space, but just be mission forward in everything you do. So no matter what the thing is, no matter how small the task, whether it's cleaning the toilet or talking to a guest or whatever, you're mission forward. And that has to be top down, like Ross and Laurie are talking about. But it's just a conscious reminder, because you can get in the grind and just, feel overwhelmed, but you can't. Your employees, you always have to be mission forward.
I agree. All right. A question from one of our audience attendees, specific to retailers, and you guys are all retailers. What about the way you stock your shelves? How are you spending in a way that supports equity initiatives? Anybody want to take that?
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we are, always making a conscious effort to promote those groups and buy from them. We do marketing pushes that are pretty intense for those groups. I know we had Coast Cannabis was at our 420 event. So in those ways is how we try to promote the brands, really.
So for us at Major Bloom, one of the reasons why we're vertically integrated with the product manufacturing was group economics. We understood that a lot of people, not even social equity or economic empowerment, let's get out of that framework. People got harmed by the war on drugs and aren't part of those programs.
Right.
They wouldn't be able to participate in the program because maybe they might not get the $1 million to open up their facility, but maybe they have a formula and intellectual property that I can then create their products for them through my product manufacturing kitchen, and then I'll stock my shelves with them. So that's my major objective. Like, I don't know anything about cooking. I can barely make cereal. So I've created a kitchen with the hopes that those who could not access it will then be able to access that kitchen and then create their products, and we will market the product, co-market. And so that's the way we build economics. A lot of people want to say, we don't have money, but we have we have it within our community. We have contractors, we have architects, we have it all. If we just realize, let me do this to you on consignment. Let me do this for you on consignment. We wouldn't even need the social equity fund. You know what I mean? And that's actually how I got through this process. It was through group economics. So, even as companies, if we can think about how we can create opportunities for those who may not be able to raise the funds that we've raised to create these, if you're cultivating, maybe you might have a strain for somebody who can't cultivate. You know what I mean?
Thanks for that, Laurie. And I see you you answered a question in the chat there, but somebody was asking about how she's involved in the social equity program and facing some hurdles. And she was asking about how she can get involved with programs that help SE applicants. So thank you for mentioning the white labeling opportunity there. And then somebody else, we got a couple minutes here, just curious, I'm not aware, but somebody mentioned Cambridge and their social equity ordinance. Are you is anybody aware of any towns that are taking it upon themselves, their local municipality, to have a social equity mandate something that just goes above and beyond what the state is? Boston, you have the 1-to-1. Yep.
Absolutely. No, not only that too, but I was on a meeting maybe a month ago where they said they had about $15,000 in grant money per applicant. So that would be the first. I mean, it's $15,000, can't pay your lawyer's fees, but it's something.
Yeah.
But get your lawyer fee on consignment. Come on, y'all. Let's build together. It doesn't have to be you don't need money. You just need each other.
All right. Thank you, Laurie. All right, so we've just got a couple minutes left here. Just obviously a big thank you for your time today. We want to just wrap this up. I'd be remiss to not say, this type of event, certainly we're here to educate people, but Elevate Northeast as a 501c3, we really rely on our members and our donors. I mentioned the scholarship fund earlier. We'd love to, welcome people to help us create more of this awareness, get out into the community, particularly as COVID-19 is ending. Then we're going to be really jumping up our community conversation series of events and things like that. So if you're a business or you're an individual that wants to get involved and collaborate on something, like Laurie said, these are people grow together. So really quickly, just down the line, if you want to, hold on, just a couple questions popped in. See. If you just want to let folks know how they can reach you, again, remind folks where you're located. We'll wrap up on that end. So April, A is for April.
Yes. So like I said, we are located in JP, right next to Whole Foods in Hyde Square. I encourage anybody to come down and visit, either for the museum experience or for the wide array of products or just to meet me. You'll find me there usually. And if you want a rainy date night or day, it's like just something to do. So come down and check us out. I'm always available. My email is on our website, seedyourhead.com. And you can find everything about us there. Thank you so much. I just want to thank you for putting this on and for reaching out to us and getting us involved.
Thank you. I haven't been to the museum yet, but I can't wait. I'm glad that something like that exists locally here in Massachusetts. So thank you for that. Laurie, how can folks find you, be on their way?
Yeah, so everybody want to find me. All my social media platforms are legally great. And that's because I want you to think that of yourself when you type it in. And also, my dispensary is going to be in 76 Millbury Street in Worcester. It's right across the street from this wonderful restaurant with a big green hat on it. So you can't miss cannot miss it. Also, if you guys enjoy great beer, 158 Grove Street in Franklin, Massachusetts, we have 67 degrees, and you can also find us at Trader Joe's. I think that's all I have to plug for today. But thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And if anybody has any questions, please hit me on the gram. I will. I'm not on time. I told you. However, I will respond to you.
Thank you so much, Lori. And Ross, rounding it out. Thank you for being here. How can folks find you?
Thank you for the opportunity to have me. This was a great conversation today. Our first location is 118 Cambridge Street in Worcester. I'm here all day, every day, sometimes behind the counter, sometimes at the front desk. So 118 Cambridge Street, and then also Nudia.co.
Very good. All right. Thanks again, everybody. And thank you so much to all of our attendees. Thank you to MCR Labs for the generous sponsorship of this event today. And stay tuned for our next upcoming events. And just thank you for being here and being a part of this conversation. You know, it's all of us collectively working together, talking to people outside of our circles, outside of the industry, helping to break stigma, helping to create opportunities for others. You know, that's why Elevate exists. And I'm so grateful for your time and collaboration today to help kind of elevate the conversation around this really important part of, you know, being a responsible member of the cannabis community, not just here in Massachusetts, but globally, I think, too. So thanks again. Thank you to all our attendees for taking your time out on your lunch hour today. Really appreciate it and hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.